Oh, yeah, Uncle. So funny, kids. But anyway, so I'm running up this volcanic island, right? And this rock is there, and Stone Cold Steve Austin jumps out, right? And in this particular moment that he jumps out, I'm meant to exchange this big, I'm meant to throw this big right across, and he's meant to go back and dodge it. And I'm like, and I said to the director, you know what, as I'm running up here, I haven't really got a good footing here. And he was going, yeah, it's okay. When you come around, you've got to throw a big swing, like just really throw it at him, and it's got to look really big, And I said, okay, well, I'm not really so sure about how safe this is. So I run up and I'm coming up and out jumps Stone Cold Steve Austin. I go, woof. And I loaded on his foot and I went bang. And they said, that didn't work. It was too far. You were too far out this way. We could see the gap between his head and your fist, so it didn't sell. You got to do it again. You got to get closer. You got to throw your punch closer to Stone Cold Steve Austin's face. I'm like, I don't know about this. It's probably getting just a little bit too uncomfortable, guys. But they're like, oh no, Steve will get out of the way, right? I'm saying, well, Richard, it was the stunt guy. I said, I don't know. So just throw it, just load it up. So I come running on the volcanic island, and here comes the rock. Out jumps Stone Cold Steve Austin, and bang! And I just felt my fist drive into the side of his face. I'm like John Cena. I get Manu Bennet, there's 2 direct hits. It's like, and I went bang. And he was just like, he went down. And everyone's like, oh, Stone Cold. It's like everyone comes in, it's like, And I'm like, Richard, I told you, man. and then it's like, if you watch the extras at the end of that video, and I'm going to stand testament to this, right? the stunt coordinator really has the audacity to say that there was an actor who was a little bit inexperienced, hit Stone Cold. I watched this thing on the video and I'm like, oh shit. But no, seriously, like Stone Cold had a black eye, as black as he could possibly get, for the whole first week of that film. And, it was terrible. It was terrible. I can imagine, it's his film, the first big film he's getting through WWE. He was starting to step up, and he was having to wear sunglasses everywhere. And the scene where, you know how everyone jumped out of the helicopter into the water and came out of the water, it's like this moment when slow motion, Baywatch. Who can I kill? Well, if you watch Stone Cold's scene, you'll see it. You can see the makeup's already starting to wash off because he's been in the waves, and he's coming in. I think he's blinking because the makeup's going out his eye. And he's going, want to see my snake? But it was interesting. It was so interesting to be. That was sort of the beginning of serious work, for me. I was in Australia. It was before Spartacus, and thank you. It was actually another part of that story was that because I'd done one movie with the WWE, right? For some reason, my agent at the time thought, well, he's already done one, and the second one, the Condemned, was coming out, right? And I'd done The Marine, and I was at the gym, and a Russian friend of mine who was an actor as well. He was like, Manu, have you heard about this new movie, The Condemned? I'm going for the audition tomorrow, And I said, really? He said, yeah, didn't you hear about this? They're looking for all kinds of nationalities. It's like people on an island, they'll kill each other. I'm like, really? No, I haven't heard about this. And so I rang up my agent and I said, hey, this other W, they said, you've already done one. Oh yeah, exactly. You know, at least they should, if I've done one, they like my acting and maybe they'll. So then she sent me in for the audition, and I had to put on this, Mexican accent, and I grew my hair longer and I had a beard and everything, so I looked different from the first movie. But funnily enough, it was actually a movie that I wouldn't have even got it. This Russian guy had to walk out of the bathroom and said, "Hey, Manu, So yeah. Funny how life has its twists.
So we do have some people in the audience.
Oh yeah, sure.
I thought I would just throw it out. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna drink my Pepsi Cola. Deathstroke drinks Pepsi Cola. Rebel.
Yeah, go ahead.
Welcome back to Phoenix.
Thank you.
I was very happy to find out you got casted in the Hobbit series, and out of every place in the world, I would love to go to New Zealand, and so I was wondering what it was like to be able to film there for such a long time.
Well, the thing is that I did motion capture. Azog was not. There was a guy originally who did Azog in the film. Right, he was a 7-foot guy, and they put him in a suit and everything. And after 3 years of filming, Peter got into the editing suite 3 months before the premiere, and he decided that he just wasn't happy with the performance of this 7-foot guy in the suit. I mean, if you remember, a good friend of mine, Lawrence McCorday, wonderful actor, wonderful Maori actor. He played the lead orc in Lord of the Rings. But whenever a shot came to Lawrence, it was kind of like because of the prosthetics. Prosthetics are good. You can get good makeup. Whether you can get the finer details of the character was the question I guess Peter was asking himself. Because like in Lord of the Rings, if you went to an orc's face, it was like. So you can imagine the original, like the guy playing the 7-foot guy. First of all, he would have been weighed down by all of this. He would have been so tired because he would have been 9 hours in the makeup chair from 1 a.m. to probably shoot time, and then come out in this big outfit and going like, "I over to knock, There's just these limitations to prosthetics, right? So I mean, like imagine if they'd only painted. Imagine if they'd put Andy Serkis in a prosthetic outfit, okay, and Gollum, right?
Yeah.
So imagine if he'd had just a rubber mask on and stuff like that, and he was going like, "Oh, my precious," like he would have come in on his face, and it wouldn't have been. The one thing that was really amazing about Gollum was those moments where he just did those slightest smirks, and you went into his eyes, and it was kind of like, is he thinking something evil? He is, but it's only so subtle, A guy that's in a rubber mask and that sort of stuff, you just can't get that kind of fine detail in a creature. And that's the good thing about motion capture, is that you can go in, you can make all of those expressions work really quite seamlessly. I mean, I think that some motion capture characters have achieved it well. I think Peter with Gollum and with Azog got it right. And everyone at the Park Road Studios and all those New Zealand practitioners and all these guys, they did such a wonderful job. But basically, just to cover that again, 7-foot guy does it right. Gets to the end of the movie, Peter Jackson's sitting in the editing suite. Nope, let's find an actor to do it in motion capture. I was doing Spartacus, he was a fan of Spartacus. I remember when I arrived at the studios, I sort of, got up there and, we're all getting ready and I'm putting on this stupid little tight suit. And I'm going, how am I going to play a giant orc in this body sock? I felt like such an idiot, honestly. One of the biggest hurdles I had creating Azog was the way that I looked in this body sock. I felt like I was at some weird German sex party. I'm standing there really awkward, and suddenly this voice over the microphone says, Peter Jackson will be in the building in 10 minutes. Suddenly everyone started moving. It was like, oh, okay, you look like you're not doing anything. Okay, nobody could look like they were not doing anything because Peter was coming, right? It was like a military drill in Winston Churchill. Somebody's about to walk in, it was like, so, and then it was funny because every minute they would say, 9 minutes until Peter Jackson will be in the building. And everyone's hearts are just pumping. It's like, well, and then they go, Peter Jackson is in the building. And everyone's just waiting, and there's this door that goes, and in walks a hobbit. I mean, Peter Jackson doesn't wear shoes. Like his shirt's undone, hairy chest, all this sort of stuff, long sort of messy hair. And he just walks in, he's like, hey, I love John Spartacus. Sort of not really making any, he's not a, he's such an interesting character, but he commands power and he's an incredible artist, and that comes out constantly. But really, really such a different personality, really interesting man. And, and then he says to me, okay, Manu, you're going to sit on this thing over here. And these guys are going to move it around. I'm like, oh, okay. What do I do? Okay, so listen. And there's these two guys on either side moving it, so I'm like, moving like this one. And he goes, okay, that's your wag. What is a wag? He said, no, it's this big giant wolf that you're going to be riding during the 3 films. You'll be riding this thing called a wag. This is the beginning of the creative process of doing motion capture. Is that nothing's there, nothing. You really got to work on it. As an actor, you're required to do so much in motion capture. You wouldn't believe it. It's completely out of body experience. Andy Serkis said it's another dimension that's added on to the expectations of an actor, and it is. And Peter goes, okay, so we're going to film the last scene of the movie first. Great. I've worked all the way through this. Here we go. And he goes, okay, there's a big tree in front of you. Who remembers the first film of The Hobbit? Remember the last scene when they're all up the tree? Can you imagine I'm sitting on this thing? And I've never seen the movie, of course, because this hasn't happened yet. Yes, that's exactly what's going on. It's moving. Good stuff. There's going to be a point to be made about this, trust me. Anyway, so I'm sitting there, and Peter's like, okay, so there's a big tree in front of you. All your other orcs are riding in on their wags beside you. Gandalf has started lighting pine cones, and they're throwing them down like onto the ground, and all the wags are going crazy now. The wags are going crazy. You can move it now. Where's the lighting go when you need it? Anyway, so you're sitting there, and there's this idea that you're in this environment, and you're on this big wolf, and none of it's there. None of it. I mean, where the hell is Gandalf lighting pine cones and throwing them down to the ground? And we're all getting crazy, and there's no other orcs around me. And the expectation to fill this scene with drama was so far-fetched even for like an experienced actor. I was kind of like, whoa, okay, yeah. And he goes, okay, now Thorin is looking at you. And he's walking down the tree now. He's drawing his blade, and you're going to have a fight. And I don't know if you remember in the film, there's a moment where Azog goes, this is what it looked like. Except I was wearing a really ridiculous outfit. Yeah. Anyway, so I said to Peter, I said, wait up, Pete, just 1 second. Okay, so this is my wag, this is like a giant wolf that Azog owns? And he said, yeah. And I said, how many times am I going to ride it in all 3 films? And he said, you're probably going to ride it, you know, several times in each film. And I said, okay, do I have a relationship with it? And he was like, what do you mean? And I said, well, you know, is it like the Lone Ranger and Silver? You know, do I whistle when it comes, or whatever? And he said, well, I don't know, like, I mean, how would you incorporate that, you know, kind of thing, you know? And I said, well, you know, like my hand's been cut off, right? And, you know, Azog got his hand cut off, and he had a pitchfork, you know, like a big pitchfork like this. And I said, well, all dogs like their necks getting scratched, right? Every dog likes to get scratched.
Oh my God.
So in this scene, right, which was, you know, the lines were, it was like this one. I said, when I deliver that, it says that I deliver it to the orcs that are around me, like, you know, like, oh, we're the bad guys, let's screw these guys up. Right? And so I said to Peter, can I make this an intimate scene? Can I change the tone of it? And that way the orc will have something normal for an orc. So, and if I say to my warg, if I tell my warg, you know, because the lines mean, can you smell their fear? So if I say it to my warg, it means it's lunchtime. Right, but I'm going to say it normally. I'm like Jaws. This is the thing. I watched Jaws the night before I went in to play Azog, and I based him on a white shark and James L. Jones's version of Darth Vader with the voice. So he said, yeah, well, give it a go. So I was sitting here, and I remember the first time that I did it, I said, how big is its head? And he said, oh, it's like way out there. It's like a big head, you know? And I remember the first time I did it, I went, and I was about this high, and I fell off the front of it. It was really not a good look. But I got back on my warg. That's what you do. You warg. And I leaned in and I went, something like this. I looked at the guys then. And it was this, you know, that moment of doing this with this head that wasn't there, this wolf that wasn't there, this whole thing was actually probably one of my most favorite personal choices ever in acting. Because it changed this evil orc into something that had intimacy in his own life with his animal. And it just changed the tone of that scene as well. If you watch it, it's kind of like he just does this thing, and it's like he has life. He comes to life. He's not sort of. I don't know whether you can do it with Jaws. You know, Jaws is swim nice. It's like. But just for me, for that one moment, it humanized Azog, and it gave him something tangible in his life, so he wasn't just standing there the whole time going like, oh, 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 oh. And then one other thing that was to do with playing him like the shark. You want to come up here? I'll show you. I've worn out the lady who has to do the sign language. She's going like big. Sorry, man. She just slowed it down. Anyway, so you're going to play the orc in the very first scene that Azog appeared in, right? He was up in this castle, right? And there's one of the things that I thought about with Jaws, because in Jaws you don't really get a feeling of fear. You do because you can't see it. And it's like you're going like, oh, where is it? So I always thought about my scenes with Azog, like I'd lurk, and I wanted to hide his face because I knew the moment that you look into the shark's jaws, that should be the last moment. and that shouldn't happen until the end. So I sort of paced my scenes with Azog based upon that. And so, can I give him your microphone for a second, darling? Thank you. So, who saw the Hobbit movies? So the very first scene with Azog ever, right? We better come over this way, so they can see this one, otherwise we'll get lost. So remember that little orc comes in and he's like this and he goes, "Oh, master, oh, they got away." You know, he makes this kind of, and so I said to Peter, instead of like being there, like, can I turn my back so you can't see Azog? And he went, yeah. And I said, I just like Jaws, I kind of like want to come in like, and when I turn around, can my wag be on the stairs so that I don't look up? So that I'm looking down like this and I pat the wag on the head, which is about probably $100,000 special effect. But Peter was like, yeah, we'll put the wag there, okay. And if you watch that scene, my white wag is lying on the stair, you know, like when I come down and pat. It wasn't there on the day, trust me, nothing's there. And there was a stunt guy playing this little orc. Actually, no, it was actually a stunt guy on his knees. So you got to go on your knees because this guy was really small. Okay, sort of face this way, not that way. That way. Okay, so go back a little bit more too, otherwise I'm going to get stuck behind things. Okay, stop there. Okay, so you're going to go like, Azog, they got away. And I'm going to try to show you sort of like the technique I used to kind of mask the incoming ferocity of a beast that was going to do nasty things.
Azog, they got away.
Umbagushni Ibunda Gundeni Gundena.
Oh God.
And in that moment, you know, it's good because you sort of got the audience kind of like, you know, I knew it was going on. You know, I'm like, who's this guy? What's going on? And then I said to Peter, can I sort of pat him on the head like he's a child? So everyone's thinking like, oh God, it's really nice to that guy's hair. And I went, and I threw this guy, this child or whatever the thing that people had bought into, through the air and the wolves ripped it to pieces. The wargs all jumped on him and ripped him to pieces. Thank you, brother, for that incredible. Thank you. But you know, it was kind of like this. It was choosing the shapes that could go with this character, choosing the character of this character, choosing the tone of this character, choosing how the character would appear and stuff like that. Because you know, you're working in so much foreign stuff because nothing's there, and then you've got to try to build a character on top of it. So that was the most challenging thing about Azog. But in the end, you know, with all the mastery of those digital Weta guys and the digital stuff that they did, you know, it was a super character. The result. Like I'm going to go faster now. One word answers. What's this?
We can come on this side.
Sorry.
Hey Manu,
Hey, brother.
welcome back.
Thank you.
You were the first panel I've ever been to at a Comic-Con ever, so a long time ago when you were here in Phoenix. So thank you very much for coming back. I also want to thank you very much for the father figures you had in these last couple of years with Arrow and Genera Chronicles and stuff like that too. Amazing. Also, Speaking of Spartacus, thanks for punching Asher in the face on the island. That was the best part of that whole episode.
That wasn't me.
I was waiting for that.
That was a stunt double.
What?
I could only spend that whole episode. I could only be there for 2 days because I was shooting Shannara Chronicles. So they flew me there, and the only scenes that I'm in that episode is the ones where you see my face. The guy in the mask, including because everyone walks up to me and says, "Man, that fight scene you had going through the factory, killing all those guys." And I said, "Yeah." Then I walk away going, "It wasn't me." but yeah, like you know, all of that. So whoever punched him in the face, yeah.
I was gonna say,
I'm gonna think it.
What was your favorite fight scene of Shannara and Arrow for the last couple episodes you came back in? What was the favorite ones you did?
Oh, you know, I really enjoyed teaching Al-Anon's daughter. You know that scene when she was learning how to fight, and that was a different scene because usually I'm used to standing opposite guys going like, doing all that stuff, and just for a moment having a somebody innocent with a sword in their hand. It took me back to the origins of Crixus. You know, like when I first arrived on Spartacus, I was a single vision gladiator, top dog, no measure given. But then I was allowed to go back in time and play Crixus when he first arrived. You know, as a virgin of the sands. You know, and I remember playing that scene when I came out, and I was like, you know, looking at all these people in the audience in this Colosseum in Rome, like where I came from. You know, I was a Gaul, like wherever I came from was a little tiny village somewhere, and here I was in this spaceship. You know, and then, you know, next when I turned around and out comes Octus, this giant, you know, parading gladiator who's got this big spear, and he's like, and he looks at me, and I'm like, and I remember playing the scene and trying to be as realistic as I could. I remember just looking at him going like, you know, and then they go, and fight. This guy runs towards me and I'm running. And I'm running around trying to get out of the way, you know, and then suddenly he comes in, he cuts me, and I'm like blood, and I'm like, you know, and then he comes in again, and I'm like, bang, 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 you know, trying to get out of the way, and then suddenly he comes through, he does this, the guy was from the Australian Ballet Company, this actor, right? So he jumps into the air and he does this leap, and he flies through the air like this. And I'm like, I've got the shield, and I go, whoa, and I stop it, and this, you know, this was CGI, but the spear goes through and almost into my eye. And I'm like, whoa. And then I'm like, oh, am I gonna die? And it's like, come out, have this fight, and kick this guy against the wall, and the two of us come together, and we're like, ah! You know, and it's like, who got killed? You know, and then the camera, and that shot came out so beautifully. It came out, and there's me standing there with this long, crazy hair, like a rock video. And the sword's coming out of his back. And suddenly he goes, Badiatus or Barker taught you well. And he slides off the sword and dies. And then I remember letting out this primal scream, just going like, you know? And I walked off set and my whole head was buzzing and everything. And my producer walked up to me and he goes, we're gonna have to shoot that scene again, Manu, because you look like you were crying. And then he turned around, he went up to his office. This is our producer. And I chased him up to the office and I said, Rob, and I closed the door and he was watching his ice hockey because he's from Texas and I don't know which ice hockey team he was watching, but he was watching ice hockey. And I said, listen, I put everything I possibly could into that fight. What are you talking about? Because let's have a man-to-man about it, because you know, like, obviously you want Clint Eastwood. And I'm not playing a two-dimensional Clint Eastwood in this character. I'm going to play the emotions of this character the way that I feel the emotions are true in this character. And he went, well, you know, your character's meant to be a champion, you know, he's meant to, you know, he's you know, we want a guy that can stand there and look like, and I said, well, for starters, at the end of that fight, I'm alone, right? Like, John Hanna, who was playing Badiatus, had to leave the set to go and shoot something else, and I was standing there in the arena with no reference point. I said, can we do a scene where John Hanna's actually in the grandstand, and after this, because I swear to you it works, brother, I swear to you it works, and you'll see later on the way that I played Crixus, it'll tie in. I said, just allow me the moment then to look toward Batty Artis and point my sword at him, because he wasn't there on the day, and this is what I would have done if he had been there. Let me point the sword at him and look at him like, you want to kill her? Now you've got to kill her. You know? And if you watch that scene in Spartacus, where that happens in some Gods of the Arena, where I look like that was shot 2 weeks later. That did. Also, they built up the fight, because in the script it read that Crixus was running around in circles until the very end and grabbed this thing out of the dust out of the ground and just went like this and won the fight by pure luck. And I asked him, can we have more fight? Can we have the moment that his spear comes through and almost takes my eye? Can we include some more fight beats so that it looks like I struggle for my life, so I get up and actually fight for my life? Because the way that it was not shot with me doing any fighting. So how do you want a champion? A champion has to be born. And if you want to born in that moment, I need these 2 moments. And so we then went through the fight again, and I got up and I kicked him against the wall, and there was all this, and the music was playing really beautifully, and the whole thing was edited really well. And you see this rise of Crixus during the fight.
Yeah, you like that kick.
Then you see this, whoa, and then this at the end. And that allows for the victory that my producer wanted. But as an actor, I'm so glad that I got to scream the way that I screamed in that shot. Because I tell you, if any man on the planet gets stuck in that situation, something's going to go through you more than just your everyday sense of a thrill or a horrible revelation in your life. It's just a choice. And I'm glad I did it. It was one of my proudest moments in this book. The Wag and screaming in Spartacus.
Thank you very much.
So you're promoting a raconteur. You know this, right?
Raconteur.
Oh, great. You give great panel.
I give.
Right?
It's never been phrased quite like that, but maybe Domina, Lucy Boyce can deliver that. You give great raconteur.
That's excellent company to be in. Because you do have another obligation. We can take one more question.
Okay.
Okay? Actually, we have a lady waiting in line.
Oh, you can't deny Navia. Look at its name.
I'm sorry.
Okay. How about I go really quick?
So the last time you were here, I was up here ready to ask a question and they stopped. And I wasn't able to ask the question, so here I am, and I could finally say something, so.
Would you like to ride my Wag?
Actually, no, I have this, really quick, you remind me of The Godfather with the cat. Like your Wag is your wolf.
Yeah.
I just reminded The Godfather walking with his cat.
Oh yeah. No, well, exactly, and that's the choice Brando would have made. I've never even thought about that scene in comparison, but that's the perfect example, to show there's compassion, some normality in a character. Well, not normality, because normality is sometimes what it is, but yeah, that's a perfect reference. Yeah.
Cool. Can I set a scene and we can play it out?
Oh my God.
Sure.
Okay.
Jesus.
So you're Crixus and you're out killing the Romans, and you come back to the encampment and you see me, Kelly,
good, good.
and you've missed me.
And I've removed
No.
my subject
No.
area.
No.
I'm sorry, this kids. Spartacus was kind of just a little bit of a funky show, kids. We won't reference it. Okay. Yes.
And so what would you say to me?
Dear God.
With your cat ears. Okay.
Oh my God, she's wearing cat ears?
Can I come up there?
Sure. Yeah.
God, no.
Yeah. Okay, so I've been fighting Romans. Okay.
Why?
And I'm coming back to.
So she gets to do this, but no
And
one
what's your
else
name?
in the audience.
And I'm coming back and Kelly's there. Okay, wait up. Can I have your microphone again for a second? Okay, first of all, I'm going to fight this woman right here. Ready? Let's all sit. Ready?
do and how he's gonna get out of it. She looks like she's a little bit, you know. Yeah. Big time.
Jupiter's cock. I never got to say that line once in the whole series.
What?
So I just had to say it. Okay, shall we begin?
That was well done.
So you guys all know that he's gonna be here all weekend, right?